tried to really push a 3-mile run before I jumped on here, and I regret it. Like literally pedal to the metal, and the insides of my body feels like an erupting volcano full of electric eels. Like it is absolutely brutal. But Blake, I am excited. Got to spend a fun weekend in Gonzales, Louisiana this past weekend, and now I'm here with you, man.
Carter, I have no idea what we'll talk about tonight because there's nothing LSU related in the news. Obviously, sarcasm. But Les Miles is suing LSU. Let's get to it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's time to come to the realization that Les Miles was not a great football coach at LSU. And I understand that sounds like revisionist history because he's suing the school that I love so much and graduated from and all of that. But Blake, you know me for a long time. If you are a process, you hear all these coaches talk about this all the time, Blake. Process over results. You hear Brian Kelly talk about it. You hear the great Nick Saban talk about it. If you are a process-oriented thinker, you could see through that Les Miles was an okay coach at LSU. All right. He did what a lot of coaches would have been able to do with the Ferrari that Nick Saban left him. And there were more mistakes that he made than good decisions that he made as the head coach of the LSU Tiger football team. And there's a lot of things that you can point to that show strong evidence towards that. And we were so caught up in the time, well, he's got all these great 10-win seasons. Sure. Fine. If we want to put an arbitrary number out for what is a good season and what is not a good season, sure. But LSU was expected to win 10 games for a lot of the Les Miles tenure. He never had a 10-win season when Leonard Fournette was with the team, the greatest running back to ever play at LSU. So, with all of this aside, Blake, I don't even know if these wins were vacated, if he should be in the College Football Hall of Fame, especially over the likes of someone like Mike Leach, who definitely deserves to be in there. So, Les will always be a big part of LSU history, but suing the university over something this crazy is absolutely asinine, especially considering some of the nefarious things he was accused of.
All right, so me and you go about to debate our asses off.
That's
all right,
fine.
You ready? All right. I don't agree with it.
Okay, which part?
All right, let's get to the because you kind of hit it in 4 tiers. Let's go with the first tier. Let's go on the field. He's the most accomplished head coach that LSU has ever had.
Okay, keep going.
It's not remotely close. He sustained what Nick built, yes, but he sustained it and continued to put it out. What we do is, Carter, I feel we look at the last half so much of his tenure at LSU, we completely miss the front of it. And I don't think it's fair. Let me ask you a question. What's college head coach alive now or not lost or won a national championship in the 2006-2007 era and then lost another one to Alabama? It would be Les Miles and Mack Brown, who Mack Brown is in the Hall of Fame. Joe Paterno's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Joe Paterno is one of the best coaches of all time. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get to the alleged stuff that he did. Not even alleged. So I look at Les and say he's one. You can't talk about the late 2000s and 2010s without Les Miles. You just can't. You can't talk about so I don't agree that if you're just talking on the field, do I think the end of his tenure was very bad? Yeah, it's why he got fired. Like, I mean, everybody has the same complaint. He won a national title and he went to another one and he's got 3 SEC championships?
Okay. So you're talking about the luckiest, most miracle national championship of all time.
Brian Kelly hadn't done what he's done in 2 years. Just calling it like it is.
Yeah, and Les Miles did that in year 3. So we'll see what Brian Kelly could do in year 3.
Fair, but he also wasn't. In fairness, I hear people say Les was inherited a Ferrari. Carter, they were 8-4 the year before.
Yeah, but he had Jamarcus Russell, Dwayne Bowe, an embarrassment of ridiculous players. Keep in mind, Blake, 2007 was an all-out miracle for them to win a national championship, a pure miracle.
Does it matter?
Yes, it does, because there are a lot of different teams that would have won a national championship that season instead of 2007 LSU, right? You take a look at and look, the 2007 team is my favorite team of all time because I was a freshman and I knew some of the players on the team and so on and so on and so on. But Blake, it was a miracle. There was 2 games that year that they dominated, and it was the first 2 games of the season. They were winning 10-9 at halftime versus Tulane. I mean, this was a team that won it all. Absolutely.
Let's not act like Nick wasn't down 10-0 to the Charleston Southern either at halftime the year that they won a national championship either.
Yeah, but there was also tons of other dominant results that team had, and they ended up blowing the brakes out of them by midway through the second quarter. I mean, look, I'm not saying Les Miles is a bad coach. He was a fine coach who loved running, toss, dive into oblivion.
Punch him in the mouth, baby. Let's go.
Right. And that strategy would rarely work offensively. And look, I give Les a lot of credit as being a good recruiter. And overall, his players did individually develop really, really, really well. But game plans were terrible. The clock management mistakes are aplenty. And on top of all of this, Blake, there are a ton of coaches I feel that would have been able to accomplish what he would have accomplished at LSU. So I tend to think he is a more replaceable coach than we would like to give him credit for. And I felt there were plenty of times when he just got absolutely, positively, brutally outcoached. I mean, he got blown out twice, 2 years in a row by a Brett Bielema Arkansas team. So, I mean, the truth is, if you actually look at the results, he is truly overrated just as a football coach.
What's he properly rated then? What do people rate him as?
I think he's a good coach, but we are talking about.
Is anybody saying that he's a great coach?
You are. If you're saying we're talking about the college football Hall of Fame.
The realistic nature of you saying there are a lot of other coaches that could have done that. Let's get to the reality. Reality is, the real world is, he did it. So we could play hypotheticals. We're not getting in the Hall of Fame off of a hypothetical. We're getting in the Hall of Fame in reference to what actually happened. Now, in another universe, Skip Bertman gets off his ass and welcomes back Saban, and we got 72 of these bitches. Okay, but the problem is, the realistic thing is that on the field he did that, and you cannot I get that the 11 shit was very bad. You can't defend that, but he got back there again. You talked about him recruiting. Okay, so he's Dabo.
Right? No. One thing I do agree with you on is 2011 was the year that he got unbelievably unlucky, and that is one of the best teams of all time. So while the 2007 team, in the grand scheme of things, is more than likely vastly overrated, the 11 team is vastly underrated because they did get unfreaking believably unlucky. And I will always defend Les Miles. Yes, the game plan was bad. Yes, there are a lot of former players that speak ill of him now that played for him because of the game plan. And I understand that, we talk to players on that team. It is very sour whenever you bring up 1-9-12. And obviously you're close with some of those players as well. I will always defend Les outside of the Alabama game. He coached that team absolutely beautifully. But everything else, Blake, was just pure luck to a certain degree. I mean, look.
But again, though, we can call it luck. We can call it voodoo. We can say Jesus Christ Almighty did all of that. That is fine. But Carter, the problem is it happened.
Yes. So my question to you is, if you had an LSU football team with the 2014 recruiting class, with all the amazing players that were on that team, then you bring in the 2015 recruiting class that also featured an absolutely ridiculous hit rate. A lot of the elite players in that class, Dante Jackson, freaking Darius Geis, were superstars. A lot of the 2014 elite guys were superstars, Jamal Adams and Leonard Fournette. And you were to tell me from 2014 to 2016 that they did not have, because everyone points at Les Miles, all these consecutive 10-win seasons. He didn't have a single 10-win season in any of those 3 years. Now, I know one of those games versus McNeese got canceled, and they would have been 10-3 that year. But still, it was just something that I would have never envisioned. I never would have thought that period of LSU football would underachieve as badly as they did.
One season, you can't really put it all on him because he got to 4 games. The second one, like you mentioned, okay, yes, McNeese there was a thunderstorm and the game wasn't played.
So he would have gotten to 10.
So he would have gotten to 10. I don't think it's fair to him to discredit that. But there comes a part to me where I agree with you on 14. I agree with what everybody is saying. But you cannot take everything else out. Even worse, I mean, telling Jordan Jefferson to spike it's the worst thing that he could have done. You know, the quirkiness, the grass eating. But it comes a time, though, Carter, and that era from let's just say 2007 to 2016, Carter, he was one of the 2 biggest talked about coaches of the sport.
Yeah. And
so you're going to take a 10-year span where a guy got to 2 national titles. By the way, lost to the best coach of all time. Nothing wrong in all of that. Would you keep Dabo out? Like, I'm not saying he's a first ballot Hall of Fame head coach. Now, we're going to talk about the off-the-field stuff in a minute. But there's got to be something that if you're going to give me Mack Brown, if you're talking about on the field, you're going to have to give me less.
Okay, so you truly think Les Miles is on Dabo Swinney's level?
No, I think Dabo's ahead of him because he won multiple national titles.
Yeah, I think they're not even in the same conversation.
No.
Okay.
That's fair.
But I would never. Yeah.
Are we going to act like the last 4 years of Dabo haven't happened? They're very Les Miles-ish, are they not?
Yes. The difference though is Dabo started that damn thing at Clemson, right? He started that. He was.
I would give you all of that, okay? And I'm not comparing the two. Just so before we get down the rabbit hole, I'm not comparing the two. But let's not act like that there has not been really good head coaches that at the end of their tenure have been ass. Bear Bryant.
So let me ask you this: how would you grade Les Miles at Kansas?
I think it's tough because he's got COVID that comes into the mix of that. He's taken over a program that historically has been horrendous.
Absolutely.
Carter, 70. I looked this up because Joe DeLeon brought this up too. Do you know that like last year's Kansas team had 70% Les Miles dudes on that team?
Yeah, and Les didn't win with them.
Well, I mean, a couple of years, yeah, but nothing that discredits the 4-18 at Kansas doesn't make me believe that he's not. Carter, he's more accomplished than Mike Leach. And accomplishments when you're talking about that's not. Carter, he won a national title. He got back to another one. It doesn't matter that one is at LSU and one's at Washington State.
Frederick Theodore Casino. Do you really believe someone is going to win a national championship at Texas Tech or Mississippi State?
Carter, but the reality of it is it doesn't matter.
It does though.
It doesn't because
if winning a national championship is all that matters, then Gene Chizik is better than Mike Leach.
Paulie, we just established that he will have legitimately had, and what were the 12 years he was here, it's well over half, and you would have given him an 8th one if he had the McNeese game. Like we realized that he averaged 11 wins a season without the vacates. Like we understand this. So you're talking about a decade's worth of 11 wins and say, oh, well, Mike Leach should be in. Cool. I agree with you there too, that he should be in. But we cannot act like a decade didn't happen, good and bad.
Exactly. But we are talking about, all right, taking, once again, all the off the field stuff out. We're talking about the college. We're talking about the College Football Hall of Fame. Is Les Miles one of the best college football coaches of all time? The answer to that is a resounding no. He is not. And it's just that simple for me. At Oklahoma State, was he good at Oklahoma State? Yeah, he was good. He was good enough for Skip Bertman to hire him. He wasn't amazing. I will tell you this, Oklahoma State is very happy that Les Miles was out, and they're truly—
That's not fair to Les either. That's not fair to Les.
You really think Les Miles could do what Mike Gundy has done the past couple of years?
They got to a New Year's Six bowl, and then he leaves.
Yes. And guess what? Mike Gundy—
act like Les didn't rebuild it either. I mean, Gundy was on the staff.
But it's not even close. It's like Mike Gundy is a far better coach than Les Miles. Far better. Not even close. Not even close.
So accomplishments don't matter.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have to.
If we're going to talk about the realistic nature of all this before we get to the off the field stuff, okay, the realistic nature is it doesn't matter what happened. For me, it doesn't matter because you can't take away the accomplishment of it. He still recruited Tyrann Mathieu. He still got him there. He still had one of the best defenses of all time. Carter, the truth is, regardless, nobody's come here and sustained what he has sustained. So we can play hypotheticals all we want to. Name a coach that has sustained great or good seasons here and had a couple of really great ones. Nobody.
I will tell you this, Blake. I will tell you this. I think you are overrating this man and underrating the brand and the talent that has rolled through LSU year after year after year.
Very true.
And the fact of the matter is, since Les Miles has been here, there is another coach who, after winning a national championship, like Les Miles, could barely get a job anywhere, hasn't gotten a job anywhere, and he also won a national championship here at LSU. It's happened twice since Nick Saban is here.
Correct.
That tells you everything you need to know
about he dominated for a decade. He has 10 wins. If Ed Orgeron was getting 10 wins, he would still be here.
Right. But Ed Orgeron's regression ended. He fell off the deep end.
Okay.
Personally, that had more to do with his incompetence than anything. Okay, cool. I give Les Miles a lot of credit for not falling off the deep end as fast as Ed Orgeron did. Whoop-de-doo.
Let's get to another point because this includes off the field, which we need to get there too. I'll just preface this by saying I know it's been a whole Les Miles conversation. Okay,
no, I will.
We'll get to some other things here. I promise. The thing with off the field with him, okay, Carter, I know of 2 federal cases that they have not been able to link him. Okay, in the Sharon Lewis case, which everybody forgets about, that Les was a part of the lawsuit in, and Carter, the John Paul Funes, which the wins are actually vacated for. It was found in federal court that he had no direct knowledge that they could prove that he had about it. Did he know it? That's fine. They couldn't prove it in open federal court. LSU couldn't either. So I come to the part and ask you, is any of what Les Miles did that we know to be proven, not alleged, proven, are we legitimately going to look at Joe Paul being in the Hall of Fame and not give Les a pass?
Yeah, so now this gets into morality. Now, I will tell you this. Joe Paterno was a better football coach than Les Miles.
Completely agree. But the morality part of it is worse than anything that's ever happened ever.
So this is where it gets into like a slippery slope. And I've heard like Peter King talk about this as a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. What do you do about Darren Sharper? What are they going to do when Antonio Brown's Hall of Fame candidacy comes up? Because obviously no one likes Antonio Brown for a myriad of reasons.
Even though Tom Brady cheated more than Antonio Brown, but
cheated in terms of deflating footballs, or
I mean, he literally went into a roast and said that he deflated the bitches.
Yeah. So look, I just don't know. Like I've not really looked into this stuff, and Blake, obviously you have a legal background, so I defer to you on a lot of this. You know, look, all I will say, and this is one part that I've always found to be so interesting, is the report said Joe Alleva thought about going in a different direction because of these allegations. What was it, in 2012 or 2013? So I think
it was 2013 that they first came to light, because those wins are like 2014, 2015 vacated.
Yeah. So I will defend less for and I always will defend less for the Children's Hospital money thing. And that it's always going to be joked about, but we all know what truly happened.
NIL, Carter.
Right.
I mean, you can't say free will Wade and then not give the same pass to Les.
Yeah. So that I will always strongly defend, even though I look like a screaming homer. All this other stuff, I really, really, really don't know. I do find it interesting that a lot of these Sharon Lewis lawsuits, Blake's, have been dead ends. I mean, just I would have thought, something would have stuck by now, and maybe there is something. I don't know. I
mean, after everything that she alleged.
Yes, it's rare that like nothing has really come of that. This is how I feel about Hall of Fames in general. I feel like you do have to separate morality from the Hall of Fame for this reason. It gets into a slippery slope. It gets into an unfreaking believable slippery slope. There are, and I won't bring up names, I really won't, but one of my favorite players of all
O.J.
time.
Simpson.
Okay, not OJ. Not the juice. But okay. one of my favorite football players of the past 30 years, and he was a college football legend. He was involved in a very serious off the field thing, and no one ever talks about it.
Is it Ray Lewis?
No one ever talks about it with this person, because he is probably the most universally loved person that's played in the sport, and he's a pretty high profile guy.
Well, who is it?
Well, I'm just not going to bring it up, because he's in the hall, and there is just a slippery slope that goes along with you saying, well, yeah, you do know that there was that thing. And it's very interesting when you start getting into that. So if you're a Hall of Fame voter and you believe Les Miles deserves to be in the Hall of Fame because of football merit, I believe that you have to put him in. I know that is very controversial. And I know that is very explosive, because we all have strong opinions towards people who do really evil things. The thing that,
and I'm not saying he didn't. He might have. I don't know.
Right. And there are classic examples of this in all forms of entertainment, right? You play an R. Kelly song at an event, people are going to be like, why are you playing R. Kelly? Okay, let me play some Michael Jackson. It's okay. MJ's okay. R. Kelly's not. I mean,
you can have kids in your bed, but you can't pee on them.
Dear Lord. It's a slippery slope.
That's the point. That's the point, though.
And Blake is. I have had those complaints before for playing music. Why are you gonna play? Well, you can't play R. Kelly, but why are you playing Michael? Why is one okay and not the other? So if you're a Hall of Fame voter and you believe Les Miles deserves to be in, and he somehow gets the winning percentage thing circumnavigated, if you believe he deserves to be into the Hall of Fame, he should be in. Okay.
All right. Well, let's talk about what the realistic nature. Just very quickly, we don't have to stay long on it, because I need to get to another question with you. Carter, if the Vidal Alexander thing is the reason they vacated wins, when Reggie Bush is getting back his Heisman, I don't. I mean, like there's parts of me that say, man, I don't know if he's not going to get him back. But like I, if that is the reason, right? Like if the reason, if you talk about everything else being off the field stuff, all the other shit, if it's about Vidal Alexander and a guy served prison time for it, and John Paul Funes, now what? Because Reggie just got his Heisman back. NIL is a thing. Carter, it's literally like a business sponsoring the kid to come here. You know what it is, LSU fans? It's Gordon McKernan.
Yeah, I mean, and one more thing. You make a really good example about the Reggie Bush thing. Vidal Alexander was a good player, not a great player.
I agree. And Carter, by the way, LSU gave back $260 million. They took $183,000 over a 5-year span.
And one more thing. It's like I think one thing that would have really screwed LSU if it, and people forget about this, the Akeem Hicks situation.
Oh God, yes.
Could you imagine him on those great defensive lines? So for those that don't know, that dude was amazing in the NFL in his prime. Man. If he would have been able to play, but obviously it didn't work out. And I already know them. I feel bad about the Michael Jackson. That is the one fan base you do not want to get on the wrong. There's going to be a Michael Jackson super fan group that gets a hold of this.
Well, see, Adam's on the R. Kelly one. He says haters want to hate, lovers want to love. I don't even want none of the above. I want to piss on you, R. Kelly.
Wait, that's Chappelle's show, right? In that,
I guess so, but it's
I think that's what that's from. Please, Adam.
All right. We've debated 30 plus minutes about Les Miles. I thought it was a really good debate, personally.
Yeah. Right. And look, I will tell you this. There are quite a few players that do not like him that played for him. There are a lot of players that love him.
We had Corner. What's Corner? Raw. He's got the podcast Raw Room.
Oh, Jalen Collins.
Yeah, Jalen Collins. Look, man, I'll be honest. I brought Jalen Collins on here, and he spent 30 minutes ripping the shit out of him.
And there's a lot of validity to that.
And look, yeah. I'm not going to speak for the man. Carter, there's a lot of dudes that love him.
Yes. No. I will tell you, the majority of players who actually played for him did like him.
Yep.
There are a lot of players that despise him for 1-9-12. And I get it, totally get it. But I would also say to those players that despise him for 1-9-12 is that out of all the luck that Les Miles had, that is literally so unfreaking believably unlucky. It's like he traded all the ridiculous luck he had for 2007 to happen. And then the 11 team, which is truly the second best LSU football team of all time.
Without question.
That team really got screwed. And that was the hardest schedule that any LSU team will probably ever have to play. And they beat everyone by double digits outside of Alabama in Bama in the game of the century. And they just got screwed. If it's Oklahoma State and they call the Brandon Whedon game field goal versus Iowa State good, which it freaking was, we're not having this conversation. Then Les Miles is definitely a two-time
national champion.
Yeah. And it's the history is very, very, very different, and so on and so on and so on. And I'll also tell you this, Blake. At that time, there were a lot of LSU players that were excited to have the Alabama rematch, and it didn't work out.
It didn't. It did. All right. Anything football related that you're monitoring here? I'll just leave this one open ended before I get you out of here.
No, I'm excited about Carius Kern, Arkansas player coming down to LSU. Last Arkansas offensive lineman that went to LSU was pretty good. Brett Helms, the kid, most underrated. Well, we were talking about the 2007 team. He is probably the most underrated LSU offensive lineman maybe ever.
I got a picture of him right here, and he's in the Helms is in the photo, in the Saban photo.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
Yeah.
He is. Now, if you want to talk about somebody that's underrated, that dude was
for sure.
Very, very underrated for how many high leverage, big time snaps and blitz pickups. And the 2007 team, the games were so chaotic, Blake. So unfreaking believably chaotic win probabilities that they came back from and won. It was pure freaking miracles that that team won the national championship that year. And it's because they had all these very experienced players, and Les just did not have them ready to play. They just figured out a way to win these games because they were very experienced and they were adults. So, it's a fun Les Miles debate on how great he actually was. And he was good, but I just don't know if I could consider him a Hall of Fame level coach.
You talking about Carius Kern? It's interesting. I'm really intrigued to see about him. He's going to be committing this week. I'd say go to the forum. Carter, are you interested about some of these things? Like, I mean, look, man, you don't have a DB committed. I know it's very early. You don't have a defensive line committed. I know it's very early. Thoughts, though?
Antoine is committed, right?
Well, yeah, Antoine's committed, but more than him, I mean,
they need a lot more than him.
Yeah, they need a lot more. So, time to get a little nervous, or
not really? I mean, I will tell you this, Blake, and I have told all my patrons, all my PHLs. I go live 4 times a week, and I do your show every week, and we go along all the time. I've kind of phased out, and I've always not been the day-to-day recruiting guy. What you do is very impressive. I've kind of phased all that out. Like, I keep up with it some, especially if there's commitments that are about to come, and I still get information and all that stuff. But Blake, with the portal and how everything has changed, it's so much better for your mental health when you're not.
I agree.
I will never.
Last 3 months before this week, everybody's been like, Blake, why haven't you been saying anything? I'm like, buddy, nobody's committed.
Yeah,
I mean, what do you want me to do? I'm not going to come out there and post false shit for you just to, you feel better about giving $7 each month. I mean, it's just, I'm just going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think the CJ Wiley thing for me is interesting. Kid that's a legacy. He, obviously takes a visit for a lot of different reasons. But, I mean, Carter, you're going head-to-head battle with Georgia for a legacy kid, and you're losing.
And he's a wide receiver, correct?
Yeah, he's a wide receiver. 6'4", 200. I mean, his pro football comp, PFF comp I saw that somebody did or something was AJ Green.
I've not watched him.
I haven't either, but that was the comp that a lot have given him.
So top 100 wide receiver from Georgia. The good thing about wide receivers, that's a position I'll never sweat, right? I will always sweat offensive line commits, always. Like, I want every single high school offensive line to commit. If LSU brought in an offensive line commitment class of 8 guys, I would think you would still need one more. Like, I truly believe there's never enough offensive line commitments. Mm-hmm. Wide receiver is something you could work around. Now, CJ Wiley might impress me. I've not the only 2 wide receivers that have really in the 2025 class that I've watched. I watched Jaime French. He's very good, very good.
Agreed.
The only guys though that have blown my skull open is Khalid Lockett and DeCorian Moore. Those are the only 2 that I've watched. Could be wrong on that. There's obviously a lot of the services have French higher than Lockett. Most services think Moore is the best. The services have gotten better at ranking the absolute best wide receivers. So yeah, those would, if we can get one of those 2 guys more Lockett, I would be super excited. Even though French is probably the one that most people feel most likely, and I think he's pretty good. But yeah, Blake, I'm excited about Francis from New Orleans, and I'm hoping he turns out to be pretty good.
We'll see. I would talk to you about this Angel Reese and WNBA stuff.
Go ahead, do it. Go ahead, do it. Go ahead.
No. What I was going to say is I'm so exhausted by it. I don't even want to talk about it.
I mean, has there been any takes on it? I've not seen it. I'm just kidding. Oh, okay. Everybody, here's my favorite thing about Angel Reese is there is a very brutal honesty with her. Like, it's kind of like Brian Kelly in press conferences. If you listen closely, she'll tell you everything you need to know. Just what, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, she said she's fine being the villain. She doesn't it doesn't bother her being the villain. Like, there's obviously some things that bother her. But she's okay with playing that role because she knows it's good. It's good. The discussions are great. And Caitlyn is this do no wrong superstar, and Angel Reese is the one that's always in the mix. And I love that. I do, and I want her to remain unapologetically herself as she moves forward through her career.
All I'm gonna say is it is driving some away. Like, I'm so over it. Because you know why I'm over it? Because it's not the versus, like Clark versus Reese is not what I'm turning away from. I'm not turning away from the competition. I'm turning away from the political shit that gets thrown with it.
Yeah, and it's gotten, a lot of people say with political debates, and it's not true, like, well, it's both sides. This is a case where really both sides on the extremes have really made this an unbearable story.
Man.
Yeah, and like the right just turns it into an all-out racial thing, and then there's people that have been with women's basketball for a while saying, well, I saw one who's a PR women's I saw her tweet out, well, men, you shouldn't comment on this. And I was like, well, what? Really? You're trying to grow the game? The NFL, half the NFL fans are women. Or what is it? I think the last study was like 40% of NFL fans that watch games.
Why are you going to cut out your fan base?
Why? And, I know it's extreme, and I know I'm very biased, but the Bill Burr bit tells a lot about the WNBA and its history. But I want the WNBA.
Was that the no women, you let your own selves down bit?
Yes, exactly. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and look, it's horrible. It's exhausting. I think a lot of us are tired of it. And my only hot take that got me in trouble, though, Blake, was I believe both Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark should have been on the Team USA team, but that's a different story for a different day.
I don't even want to go there. I don't even want to go there. Like, I could live my life with. I look. It's not that I don't like the competition. I love the competition. I actually welcome the rivalry. It's just that when I click on something and Matt Liner said suspend her, and then Angel Reese to be suspended, and I'm like, that's so awful. And then every comment under that, it's like, Matt Liner's a racist. I'm like, what? Like, come on, dude. Like, Jesus Christ. All right, my man. We will see you soon. Can't believe that we're talking about Les Miles today. Never would have thought that this was going to happen, but this
it is honestly my favorite topic because I was there for it. I watched it, and I am a process over results guy. And knowing what I saw, knowing how meetings and game plans went under the Les Miles tenure. Look, one thing I'll give him credit for is he did hire damn good defensive coordinators, going from Chavis to